social Darwinism, Jingoism, imperialism, mainly imperialism, but social Darwinism and Jingoism gives you kind of the background of the mindset of most Americans. Although in this first video, I'm going to say that not all Americans were in favor of imperialism or were in favor of these wars. Although a lot of times your history teachers and books will tell you that, yeah, most of America, they fell for Spanish-American War. Well, actually, they didn't. Not a lot of Americans fell for it, but it doesn't matter because this country is not necessarily a democracy at times. We are ruled by the elites. We did Hawaii. We are now in the midst of talking about the Spanish-American War. So as we talked about yesterday, mysteriously, the Maine blows up. 160 soldiers die. We get the news articles telling us about, oh, it's such a terrible thing. We've got to get Spain, those dirty whatevers. And so you're led to believe that, all right, because of yellow journalism, everybody fell for this and most of the country was in support of it. Well, not really, because most of America didn't care. And especially the factory workers in this country who, during the industrialization of our country, were dying left and right. There were factory accidents every single day, and yet no one cared about the workers. And so the workers said, look, it's too bad that 160 soldiers died in the Maine. This is coming from Mr. Zinn again. It's too bad that they died, but look, we're dying every day and no one cares. No one's doing anything about it because it doesn't sell newspaper articles. Same thing today. There's a lot of problems in America today, and guess what? No one talks about them because it's not one of those big topics. If it doesn't have to do with racism, it doesn't have to do with like a really scary issue of people being oppressed, then it's just not going to get talked about. It has to be a very scary, big issue. Regular crap. No one wants to talk about. So a lot of the soldiers didn't even care about the Maine. They didn't care about the Spanish-American War. And one of the interesting things, one of the things the longshoreman leaders predicted exactly what was going to happen. He said, look, here's what's going to happen. We're going to pay for this war with our lives because we're going to be the ones that fight for it. And also we're going to be the ones that pay for it because it's going to be our tax dollars that buy the guns, the machine guns, the weapons, that pay for the ship, that pay for the oil, that pay for the food. We're going to pay for it. And the rich are going to get rich because they're going to get a new market to sell goods to. They're going to get rich by selling weapons. They're going to make a bunch of money, and we're going to pay for this thing. We don't want anything to do with it. And he was absolutely right. That's exactly what happens in the Spanish-American War. So the yellow journalism makes us believe that Spain is evil. There's another layer to this also. Again, Howard Zinn. We're going to go to the lefty version. I don't know if this is lefty or right. I don't even know where Howard Zinn is. Again, Howard Zinn is off on his own planet of basically just interesting historical reading. It's always good to get conservative because a lot of these videos, I will give you a conservative perspective. A lot of times I'll give you a liberal perspective. I'm all over the place trying to get to the truth. So Winston Churchill, he'll say, look, it's not necessarily about the money. His argument is the U.S. better get involved here because if the Cubans revolt and rebel and kick out the Spanish, then the Cubans are going to set up their own government and they're going to start another black republic. He's referring to Haiti, and he thinks it will be a bad thing if we have another nation that's led by black people. This is Winston Churchill, a guy that's beloved by everyone, obviously also a racist, but in his defense, which I'm not really going to get into much time defending him specifically, but if we go into if we deconstruct history and look at anyone from the past, we can easily make all of our heroes look like villains. If we deconstruct the past and look at every single hero, it does not matter who you want to look at, from Martin Luther King Jr. to Thomas Jefferson. If we deconstruct everything that they have done and look at all their views and all their opinions and all their beliefs, we will find enough to destroy any and every man. Perfect example here is Winston Churchill. Not necessarily doing this to disparage him, but also giving you, again, that idea of another idea affecting American foreign policy or imperialism was racism. A lot of racism involved in a lot of these decisions that were being made. I shouldn't laugh. I don't mean to lessen how severe racism is, but it's almost over and over and over with these videos. But the good thing is that America is nowhere near what it used to be. That's the bright side. When we look at every one of these videos, probably in the Unit 7 Imperialism, we talk about racism a lot, unfortunately. But when we talk about current events, the racism today is nowhere near what that was. Set a timer for 12 minutes. I keep forgetting to set the timer. So the U.S.'s plan is to not be imperialist. We're like, no, we're not like Europe. We're not going to take over the land. We're not going to steal land from people. That's bad. We're not going to do that. No. We're not imperialists. We're going to free Cuba, and then we're gone. Come on. It's defined by the Teller Amendment. So we actually make an amendment that says, no, we're going to go in, we're going to get involved in Cuba, we're going to get the Spanish-American War rolling, but we're not going to take the land. Once the war's over, we'll let the Cubans have it. We promise. So the Spanish-American War is going to take place here in Cuba, here in Puerto Rico, but it's also going to take part in the Philippines because this is not the Cuban War. This is the Spanish-American War. That means Spain versus America. So then, justifiably, we can fight Spain wherever we want. If we wanted to invade Spain, we could have. We didn't need to go that far. We settled for fighting here off the coast of America, here in the Caribbean, and also on the other side of the earth in the Philippines. So we'll start with the Philippines. And over here in the Philippines, we'll just blow them up via ship. Remember Captain Alfred Thayer and his we need a strong Navy idea. So we'll use that strong Navy and we'll conquer the Philippines pretty quickly, but not so fast because the battle on the ground is not as easy. We run into trouble because it's not just us versus the Spanish. It's us versus the Spanish, also versus the Filipinos. There were people there. This wasn't Spain, this was the Philippines. The Philippines were conquered or colonized by the Spanish. And so you had the Spanish and the Filipinos, and then we roll in. So this is like a triple death threat match. And so, or triple threat match. And then we decide, like, look, Filipinos, we promise we'll set you free. Yeah. We're not going to let them free. But anyway, we tell the Filipinos, if you fight with us to help us defeat the Spanish, we'll let you free. And so we team up, and after that, we join powers, and we quickly get the Spanish out of the Philippines. Fly back over to the other side of the earth in Cuba. So what's going on in Cuba? We jump into this war, and it's relatively easy in terms of battle. Only 10% of the casualties during this war are through actual war and getting shot and killed and battling. Not to say that no one died battling the war, but often when you think of a war, you think of guys running into bullets and people getting killed left and right, and that's our general idea of what a war is. Not the Spanish-American War in Cuba, at least. Only 10% of the deaths. So 90%, everybody else is dying somewhere else. How are they dying? Mosquitoes, malaria, diseases, and then the other thing that's going to kill the people is spoiled meat, which you think you're probably scratching your head. You're thinking of the Spanish-American War. Maybe you've seen some pictures and you're thinking of the battles. And the reality is, oh, I ate a bad cheeseburger. I'm going to die now. But that is what happened. And one example that Mr. Zinn talks about in his book is, so the armor company, they sell meat, barrels of meat. They sell this meat over to Liverpool in England. And Liverpool's like, this meat's spoiled. We don't want it. Get it back. And so they ship it all the way back to America. The armor company then takes that spoiled meat and sells it to the U.S. Army for the soldiers to eat. They go through and they find all this spoiled meat. Some of it's so spoiled and so rotten that the barrels of meat are exploding from the pressure of the meat deteriorating. Some of the meat got through, got to the soldiers, and they died. Like, why would you eat spoiled meat? Well, look, if I've got spoiled meat and I cook it and then I serve it to you, you may not know it's spoiled. I don't know. I've never really cooked spoiled meat. Maybe you can still smell it when it's being cooked. Don't really know. Either way, 90% of the soldiers that died wasn't through fighting. It wasn't necessarily the easiest battle for the Americans, and that was mainly because they were inexperienced. Remember, like, the soldiers have nothing to do. It'd been a long time since the Civil War. You had, 40-some years since we had a real battle. Now, we did have the Mexican-American War was before that. You had the American Indian Wars. I don't even know if we want to call them the American Indian Wars. We just want to call them the stealing of land out west. But they really didn't have a lot of fighting experience. And then you got food poisoning and tropical disease killing everybody. So pretty terrible stuff. Teddy Roosevelt will be famous with his Rough Riders. Again, these are those inexperienced guys just looking for a fun thing to do. Hey, let's go eat bad meat and die. Cold, man. Hey, mosquito bite to death. Let's do it. I need that kind of experience and that adventure. But the ones that didn't got the adventure, and as we said, statistically, it's very unlikely that they died. As college students, just dudes looking for something to do because they're bored, led by this guy who was bored and wanted something to do, wanted to adventure. All right, Teddy. Buffalo Soldiers. So we had Buffalo Soldiers in the Civil War. This name was given to the African-American cavalries by the American Indians. I guess it's kind of racist. I don't know. I don't know how that works anyway. But if you embrace it and accept it, then it no longer becomes racist. So anyway, the Buffalo Soldiers are these all-black units. They fought in the Civil War. They fought in the Mexican-American War. You get some of these things mixed up. Sorry, folks. Whatever the war was with Pancho Villa. You can't say whatever the war was. Well, I just did. Sorry. Deal with it. And they will be in the Philippines, and they will fight in Cuba. So, like, oh, cool. Well, you're just giving us a rain effect. One of the bigger ideas here is when you have this idea of social Darwinism and the idea that blacks are inferior to whites, One of the ways, really the main way, the first really getting the foot in the door towards equality was Black Americans proving their worth and proving equality was in the military. By fighting for America, Black soldiers often proved to white soldiers, to the public, that no, we are your equals. People are equal. All men are created equal. Unfortunately, you often have to show that you are equal. This would be a perfect example. And then World War I and World War II would be even better examples of Black Americans proving once again and for all that blacks and whites are equal. The Buffalo Soldiers are another example of Black Americans basically putting an end to some of these racist ideas, although a lot of people didn't accept it, but it was one step in the right direction. So Guam comes pretty easily. Puerto Rico comes pretty easily. We'll talk about Cuba in detail here in a second, although we went over the war. Let's go look at the Philippines and what happens here. So the Philippines, we kick out the Spanish, right? We team up with the Filipinos and we kick out the Spanish. Now comes a decision. The president has to make a decision. Should we let the Filipinos rule or should we take over? So he thinks about it. He says, all right, we could free the Filipinos, but if we let them rule themselves, we may run the risk of a dictator taking over that control of the country, and the people, the Filipinos, will not have rights. It will not be a democracy. So we don't know if we necessarily want to free the Filipinos and let them rule themselves. We do not think they're capable of ruling themselves. Okay, kind of racist. The next option is, all right, why don't we just free them? And how do we know that the English or the French might just roll in and then just enslave them again? Well, we're kicking out the Spanish. If we walk away, maybe the British will run in, maybe the French will run in, maybe the Russians will roll in. We don't know what's going to happen. So if we let them rule themselves, they may turn the power over to a dictator, or a dictator may just take over. Number two, some other country may just recolonize them. So you know what? The best thing to do is we're just going to go in and we'll take over. At that point, the Filipinos revolt and say, look, what's the deal? We were just colonized, and now you are recalling. It doesn't matter if it's the British or the French. You're doing the same thing. And so the Filipinos, who were promised their independence, right? They fought on our side. They revolt. We have a pretty crazy guerrilla warfare, jungle battle, a lot of disease, very racist battling. Eventually, the Filipino revolt put down, and they will not get their independence until after World War II. One of the stranger phenomenons here is like the Philippines War, part of the Spanish-American War, is very racist. It was because we have brown-skinned Filipinos, and there's, obviously you can read again a lot of the more specific details of the racist acts that take place. But you have this strange situation where the Buffalo Soldiers, the Black Americans who are, at this time in America, are not just it's not just Jim Crow. We're talking about black codes and laws where black people are not just accused of random loitering and then thrown in jail for 30 years. We're talking about the Wilmington insurrection happens where white people literally just go through Wilmington killing all the black people left and right, and there's with total impunity. And this happens in New Orleans where white people go into New Orleans and just kill. And Memphis as another example of during this time where it's not just racism, it's not just racist laws, it's literally white people killing black people for no reason, pretty much. And so then you take the black people are going over and fighting for a racist country and being told to kill other dark-colored people. It's a very strange phenomenon, and the black newspapers criticize the Buffalo Soldiers for their actions. But what are you supposed to do? You have to support the country to prove your equality, but in supporting the country, you're killing other oppressed people. The only way to rise out of your own oppression is to continue with the oppression of another people. Very weird, very strange, tough times. Jump back over to Cuba. So again, we talked about the Teller Amendment, and the Teller Amendment then is replaced by the Platt Amendment. Now, Teller Amendment said originally, we're not going to colonize you. Once the war's over, we're gone. You're clean. You're free. We're out of here, Cuba. We're talking about Cuba now. Well, that gets replaced by the Platt Amendment. Well, why did the Platt Amendment say, well, okay, Cuba, once you're free and Spain is gone and you're writing your Constitution, we got to put a couple things in your Constitution. Go put a couple things in that Constitution for us. What do you mean? Well, anytime, Cuba, you want to sign a treaty with another country, we got to approve it. So if you want to sign a treaty with Haiti, you want to sign a treaty with Mexico, you want to sign a treaty with Spain or England, before you two can agree, we got to be a part of it. It's very paternalistic. We get to have final say of everything. Also, if there are any political things that are going on in your country that we don't like, we can shut it down. Sorry, if there's a political campaign or a political party or there's laws that are going on that we don't like, we can shut it down. Also, we're going to leave our military there. Our military can intervene at any time. Wait, what? What do you mean? So the U.S. can get involved in Cuba whenever they want. No questions asked. Yes, that is the Platt Amendment. So you sign a treaty, we get approval. We also can intervene with any political things that we don't like. We can also intervene with any military. You basically can intervene with anything. So why are we talking like that's really all there is? There's military and there's political ideas. Like what else? That's everything. It's not like you want to get involved, intervene on ice cream manufacturing. You're intervening with everything. Yeah, pretty much. That's the way it is. So wait, there's another thing. We want a Navy base too. We're going to leave a Navy base there. So you're pretty much just going to keep Cuba then, just like the Spanish did. Exactly, but no, we're setting you free, just with a handful of restrictions that pretty much make you belong to us. That's what happens. And William Jennings Bryan will be like, dude, that's imperialism. What are we doing? That's imperialism. We just kicked Spain out for doing the same thing. The yellow journalists, they wrote all these articles about Spain being bad. We are doing the same thing. Exactly. We're not even just vaguely doing it. We're specifically saying we're going to intervene militarily. We're going to intervene politically. We're going to have bases there. We get to deal with all of your treaties. We're specifically stating imperialism. There is no vagueness to this. Meet the new boss. Same as the old boss. So the Cubans get rid of the Spanish, and guess what? America takes over, and now America can make all of the money off the sugar plantations for herself. This is imperialism. Stronger nation taking over a weaker nation. Why? To steal their natural resources, to steal their human capital, to advantage us. It is never, ever as though all we will say, no, we're going to civilize the Cubans. We're going to lead them in the ways of Christianity and advancements in mathematics and science, and we're going to progress into the new age. No, we're just going to steal their stuff and imprison them. Those are your learning goals. That'll do it for these videos.